a young prince, abandoned by his own family, was left to the mercy of the mighty river Zuka. What seemed like a tragic fate would soon reveal itself as the beginning of an incredible journey. Instead of drowning in the cold waters, the river carried him to a hidden kingdom beneath the waves, where a secret world of mermaids awaited. What happened next would expose a centuries-old conspiracy, unite two worlds, and teach a corrupt kingdom the true meaning of leadership. They thought they had silenced the rightful heir to the throne, but they had only awakened a force far greater than they could imagine. This is the story of how Prince Ola, lost to the world, found a new life among the river folk and how his destiny would change the fate of Tula forever. Before we continue, we'd love to know where you're watching from today. And if you're enjoying these epic tales, don't forget to subscribe, because tomorrow's adventure will leave you breathless. In the heart of Tula, a kingdom bathed in golden sunlight and lined with lush green forests, a secret was unfolding by the gentle yet mighty river Zuka. The river snaked its way through the land, carrying life to the people of Tula. But today, it carried something else, a cradle. Inside the cradle lay a tiny boy, wrapped in soft, royal silk embroidered with the golden crest of the king. His cries echoed over the water, a plea for help that nature itself seemed to heed. Unbeknownst to him, this boy was Prince Ola, the firstborn son of King Ade and Queen Duni. But danger had come to the palace. After the queen's sudden passing, the king remarried a woman named Leo. Though beautiful and poised, Leo hid a heart filled with envy. She feared Prince Ola's claim to the throne would overshadow her own son, little Ao. Late one night, Leo whispered to her most loyal servant, "Take the boy to River Zuka. Let the waters decide his fate. With him gone, my Ao shall be king." The servant obeyed, trembling as he carried out the wicked deed. He placed the prince's cradle on the riverbank and gave it a gentle push. The current caught it, carrying the boy away. Leo smiled when she heard the news. "The path is clear now," she said. But River Zuka had its own secrets. Beneath its shimmering surface lived a magical world ruled by the mermaid queen, Alakan. The river folk, as they were called, were guardians of the waters and protectors of the innocent. As the cradle drifted deeper into the river, a young mermaid named Kemi swam nearby, collecting colorful shells. Her dark green tail shimmered in the sunlight streaming through the water. Suddenly, she heard the faint cries. She swam closer and gasped at the sight of the cradle. Who would leave a baby here? She wondered aloud. Kemi gently lifted the cradle and carried it to the underwater palace. The mermaid queen, Alakan, looked at the child and said, "This boy is special. He's no ordinary child. We must care for him as one of our own." And so, Prince Ola's life in the river began. The underwater world of the mermaids was a breathtaking sight. Coral castles sparkled like jewels, and schools of fish danced in vibrant colors. The river folk lived in harmony, nurturing the life that flowed through River Zuka. Kemi brought the boy to her home, where her family welcomed him with open arms. They named him Toby, a name that meant great in their tongue. Years passed, and Toby grew strong and kind, loved by all the river folk. He had no memory of his life on land and believed he was just like the others. Kemi became like a sister to him, teaching him the ways of the river. "Always respect the water," she told him. "It is alive and listens to our hearts." One evening, as they sat on a smooth rock, watching the golden rays of sunlight filter through the water, Toby turned to Kemi. "Kemi, why don't I have a tail like you?" Kemi hesitated, glancing away. "You're special in your own way, Toby. The river chose you." She smiled, but Toby noticed a hint of sadness in her eyes. "Chose me for what?" Toby pressed, his brow furrowing. "Sometimes, I feel like I don't belong here." Kemi placed a hand on his shoulder. "You belong, Toby. Never doubt that. Trust the river's wisdom." Though her words comforted him, Toby couldn't shake the feeling that there was more to his story. While Toby thrived underwater, the kingdom of Tula began to suffer. A great drought gripped the land, drying up crops and rivers. Even mighty River Zuka began to shrink. The people prayed for rain, but none came. King Ade grew weary. His heart was heavy with the loss of his firstborn, though he never spoke of it. Late at night, he often stood at the balcony, gazing at the stars. "Duni," he whispered to the heavens, "forgive me for failing our son." Queen Leo, however, saw the drought as an opportunity. Sitting by the king, she feigned concern. "The people will blame you," she said softly, her voice like silk. "But if you name our son, Ao, as your heir, they will see it as a sign of hope." The king rubbed his temples. "I cannot forget Ola, Leo. His absence is a shadow over my heart." Leo's eyes hardened for a moment, but she quickly softened her expression. "You are a king, Ade. Your people need strength, not shadows." Reluctantly, the king nodded, unaware that Leo's ambitions ran far deeper than she let on. One fateful day, Toby and Kemi were exploring the shallower parts of the river when they noticed a group of humans gathered on the bank. Toby swam closer, his curiosity piqued. Among them was a young boy, Ao, now 10 years old, standing beside his father, King Ade. They had come to the river to seek its blessing, hoping it would bring rain. "Who are they?" Toby whispered to Kemi, his gaze fixed on the humans. Kemi's expression grew serious. "They're from the land. It's rare for them to come so close to the river." Toby felt a strange pull as he watched them. He didn't know why, but something about the king's face seemed familiar. Kemi noticed his distraction and placed a hand on his shoulder. "Come, Toby. Let's go back." But before they could leave, the king stepped forward. His voice rang out, heavy with sorrow. "Great River Zuka, if you can hear us, please help our land. Return to us the life you have taken." The words struck Toby like a bolt of lightning. "What does he mean, Kemi?" he asked, his heart pounding. Kemi hesitated, her lips tightening. "There are many stories, Toby. Perhaps he speaks of one of them." Toby frowned, unsatisfied with her vague answer. That night, he couldn't sleep. Dreams of a palace, a cradle, and a woman's voice calling his name filled his mind. He woke up with a start, determined to find answers. "I need to know who I am," he told Kemi the next morning, his voice resolute. She nodded, her heart heavy with the knowledge she had kept from him for years. "Then we'll find the truth together," she said softly. And so began the journey that would change both kingdoms forever. As the first light of dawn broke over River Zuka, Toby and Kemi set out toward the heart of the river, where the waters grew deeper and the secrets of the river folk lay hidden. Toby carried a growing sense of unease, but also a spark of determination. He was ready to confront the truth, no matter how painful it might be. "Why did you never tell me?" Toby asked, breaking the silence as they swam. Kemi hesitated, her gaze fixed ahead. "Because I was afraid. Afraid that if you knew the truth, you'd leave us." "Leave you?" Toby's voice softened. "Kemi, you're my family. No truth could change that." Kemi glanced at him, her expression torn between relief and sorrow. "Then you're stronger than I am, Toby. I've always feared losing you." As they approached the glowing coral palace of Queen Alakan, the waters seemed to hum with anticipation. The queen was waiting for them, her regal presence casting a shimmering light across the hall. Her deep blue tail coiled gracefully beneath her. "Toby," she said, her voice echoing like a song. "You've come seeking answers." Toby nodded, his heart racing. "Yes, Your Majesty." "Who am I? Why do I feel like I'm not like the others?" Alakan's gaze softened, and she gestured for him to sit. "You were born of the land, Toby, but the river chose you. Years ago, you were brought to us as a child. Abandoned, but not forgotten." Toby's hands clenched. "Who abandoned me? Why?" "That answer lies on land," Alakan said gently. "But know this, the river did not take you by chance. You have a destiny that ties both our worlds together. While Toby grappled with the revelations, events in Tula took a darker turn. Queen Leo's ambitions began to unravel as the drought deepened. The people grew restless, their whispers of discontent reaching the palace walls. "The river has abandoned us," one elder said during a village meeting. "Perhaps the gods are punishing us." Leo dismissed the murmurs as nonsense, but she couldn't ignore the growing unrest. "We need to solidify Ao's position as the heir," she told her most trusted advisor. "Once he's declared, the people will rally behind him." The advisor hesitated. "And what of the king, my queen? His heart still mourns Prince Ola." Leo's eyes darkened. "The king will mourn in silence. Tula needs a leader who looks to the future, not the past." But even as Leo plotted, the king's heart remained heavy. King Aid's nights were filled with dreams of a child, his son, whom he had lost. He had never spoken of Prince Ola's disappearance, but the weight of his absence was a constant, unspoken ache. Leo, ever the opportunist, continued to play her role as the loving stepmother, but beneath her smile, a storm of ambition raged. One evening, as the drought reached its peak, King Ade stood once more at the balcony of the royal palace, looking out at the parched land. The cracks in the earth seemed to mirror the cracks in his heart. He clenched his fists, and his mind wandered back to the day of his son's disappearance. The suspicion had always been there, lingering like a shadow. "The river," he whispered, as if the great waterway could answer him. "Did the river take you, my son? Or was it something far darker that stole you from me?" Across the room, Queen Leo stood watching him, her lips curling into a faint smile. The king's sorrow was her opportunity, and she would use it to her advantage. "Perhaps you need to move on, Ade," she said softly, stepping closer. "Ao is the future now." King Ade turned to face her, his eyes filled with an ancient sadness. "I can't forget Ola, Leo. I can't." Leo nodded in understanding, but deep within, her thoughts were already turning to the next phase of her plan. "Perhaps we could consult the river once again. We could ask it to help us, to end the drought. But perhaps we should also ask it for something more." King Ade met her gaze, a flicker of something dark crossing his expression. "What do you mean?" "Nothing," Leo said with a soft laugh, stepping back. "Only that the river holds many secrets. Perhaps it could offer us a sign, a signal of hope. The land is dying, Ade. We need to act now." Her words hung in the air, both a suggestion and a command. But the king was lost in thought, his mind not on her scheming, but on a deeper, more profound worry. Meanwhile, under the shimmering waters of River Zuka, Toby was beginning to understand the depth of his true identity. Queen Alakan's revelation had sent ripples of confusion through him. He had always felt different, but now, more than ever, he was beginning to understand that his life was tied to a fate far greater than he had ever imagined. Kemi swam beside him, her dark green tail flicking through the currents with practiced grace. She had always been the one to guide him, to comfort him, but now she, too, felt the weight of the truth pressing down upon them both. "You're not like us, Toby," she had said, her voice trembling. "You were meant for something more. You are a child of the land, but the river chose you for a reason. You must return, Toby. It's time for you to face your destiny." The words hung heavily in the air as they neared the palace of Queen Alakan. The shimmering light from the coral structures reflected off the water, creating a sense of majesty and mystery. As they swam into the heart of the palace, the water seemed to hum with power, and the queen, regal as ever, was waiting for them. Toby's heart raced as he swam up to the queen, who gestured for him to sit beside her on the bed of smooth coral. Her deep blue tail rippled beneath her, an emblem of the river's ancient power. "Toby," Queen Alakan said, her voice both calming and commanding. "You have learned the truth of your origin. You were abandoned by your mother, taken by the river, and raised by us. But you are not meant to remain here forever. The land needs you. Your people need you." Toby's gaze shifted, confusion clouding his thoughts. "I don't understand, Queen Alakan. Why me? Why was I chosen?" The Mermaid Queen's eyes softened as she looked at him. "You were meant to unite the two worlds, Toby. The land and the river are not separate, they are one, connected by the very flow of life that runs through them. The drought that plagues the land is a result of the imbalance between these worlds. You must return to restore the balance, to heal both the river and the land." Toby swallowed, his throat dry with a mixture of fear and awe. "But I don't even know where to start. How can I restore balance when I know nothing of the world I came from?" Queen Alakan smiled, her expression filled with wisdom. "You have within you the power of the river. The water listens to your heart, Toby. It will guide you. But first, you must go to the heart of the land, to the kingdom of Tula. There, you will discover your true place in the world." Toby's heart thundered in his chest. The land, his home, his people. He had never known them, but now, the call to return to Tula seemed undeniable. He was no longer just Toby, the mermaid boy. He was something more, something tied to the future of both the river and the land. Kemi swam beside him, her face filled with worry and sadness. "Will you leave us, Toby?" she asked softly, her voice breaking through his thoughts. Toby turned to her, his eyes filled with determination. "I have to, Kemi. I have to know who I am, and I have to help the people of Tula." Tears welled up in Kemi's eyes, but she nodded, her heart heavy but understanding. "I will always be here for you, Toby. No matter where you go, the river will be your home." And so, with the blessing of Queen Alakan, Toby began the journey back to the land that had once been his. The path ahead was uncertain, fraught with danger and mystery, but he knew one thing for sure: his destiny awaited him in the kingdom of Tula. Back in the palace, Leo's machinations were beginning to unfold. Her son, Ao, was growing older, and the people were starting to question the king's leadership. The drought continued to ravage the land, and whispers of rebellion began to rise. Leo knew that the time was near, she would soon have the throne. But little did she know that the river, and the boy she had tried to destroy, was returning. The stage was set for a collision of worlds, where the truth of Prince Ola's disappearance, the power of the river, and the fate of Tula would all converge. The battle for the kingdom had just begun. Toby swam with purpose, his heart beating with both excitement and trepidation as he left the shimmering waters of River Zuka behind. The deeper he ventured into the river's currents, the more the sense of destiny weighed upon him. Each stroke felt like a pull from the river itself, urging him forward, guiding him toward his unknown future. His thoughts often drifted to Kemi, the sister he had known all his life, and to Queen Alakan's words. The truth that had been hidden from him now felt like a heavy mantle, one he was not sure he was ready to wear, yet he knew he could not ignore the path that lay ahead. Kemi had insisted on accompanying him to the riverbank, her face filled with a mix of sorrow and pride. "Promise me, Toby, that you will return," she had whispered as they parted ways. "The river will always be with you." "I will return, Kemi," Toby had promised, his voice strong despite the uncertainty that loomed in his heart. "I must find the truth." Now, as he swam upstream toward the mouth of River Zuka, where it met the dry, cracked earth of Tula, Toby felt a deep pull in his chest. The land called to him, as though it were waiting, like an old friend whose presence he had forgotten. It was a familiar ache, one that had been buried for years, a reminder of the life he had lost but never known. Back in Tula, the air was thick with tension. King Ade stood before his court, a look of solemn determination etched on his face. The drought had lasted for far too long, and though the people continued to show faith in him, he could feel their hope beginning to fade. The kingdom was teetering on the edge of collapse, and whispers of rebellion were becoming louder. The people of Tula demanded action, something, anything, to end the suffering they had endured for so long. Queen Leo, standing beside him, maintained her regal composure, though her eyes sparkled with an intensity that only those who knew her true nature could recognize. She had been biding her time, carefully orchestrating events, waiting for the right moment to make her son Ao the heir. Ao, with his innocent face and obedient nature, was everything she had dreamed of as a ruler. And now, with the king's heart weighed down by his grief and the people desperate for leadership, the moment had come. "The people are growing restless," Leo said quietly, her voice a calm contrast to the growing storm in the kingdom. "Perhaps it is time to declare Ao as your heir. The drought may be a sign that the gods are testing you, Ade. They might want to see you act swiftly." King Ade looked at his wife, his heart heavy. "I cannot erase the memory of Ola. How can I declare Ao as the heir when my own flesh and blood is missing, possibly lost forever? I fear I will be seen as a king who abandoned his own son." Leo placed a hand on his arm, her touch warm but firm. "You must think of the future, Ade. Ao is the future of Tula. Our people need hope. And declaring him as your heir will show them that we are still strong, that we are still able to lead." King Ade's mind was a storm of conflicting emotions. He loved Ao, but his heart still clung to the memory of Prince Ola. He had never given up hope that his son might one day return. And yet, the drought continued, and the people's patience was thinning. Meanwhile, Toby finally emerged from the river, his feet touching the dry earth of Tula for the first time in his life. The heat of the sun was harsh on his skin, and the land seemed so different from the cool, ever-moving waters of River Zuka. But as he took his first steps into the kingdom, something within him stirred, a deep, ancestral connection to the land he had once called home. The journey had been long, and though his heart still ached from the unknowns ahead, he felt the river's presence within him. The water was not just a part of his past, it was now a part of his soul, a force that could never be separated from who he was. His eyes scanned the surroundings, parched fields, the cracked earth, the once lush forests now barren and dying. It was a sight of devastation, and it only confirmed what Queen Alakan had told him. The balance between the river and the land had been broken, and the people of Tula were suffering because of it. Toby's destiny, it seemed, was now to restore that balance. He didn't know where to begin, but he knew he had to find the palace. His feet moved on their own, following the pull of the river's wisdom. After a few hours of walking through the dry countryside, he reached the city gates, where the guards stood watch, their faces tired and weary from the endless days of heat. "Halt!" one of the guards called out as Toby approached, his voice hoarse. "What business do you have here, traveler?" Toby's gaze was steady as he met the guard's eyes. "I am not a traveler," he said, his voice carrying an unspoken authority. "I seek the king." The guards exchanged uncertain glances, but something about Toby's presence was undeniably compelling. They stepped aside, allowing him to pass. As Toby entered the city, he could feel the weight of the people's eyes upon him. They seemed to sense that something was different about him, that he wasn't just a stranger, but someone who had a deeper purpose. At the palace, King Ade sat in his study, contemplating the next move. His advisors had been growing increasingly concerned about the drought, and the kingdom was on the verge of unrest. The whispers of rebellion had only grown louder, and the pressure to name an heir had reached its peak. Suddenly, the door to his study creaked open, and a figure stepped inside. King Ade looked up, his heart skipping a beat as his gaze fell upon the young man standing in the doorway. Toby stood tall and strong, though his appearance was foreign. His hair was wild and long, and his clothes were simple, yet there was something about him, something regal in his bearing, that immediately commanded attention. But it wasn't just his appearance that struck King Ade. It was the look in his eyes, the same eyes that had once belonged to his son. "Who are you?" King Ade asked, his voice thick with emotion. Toby took a step forward, his heart racing. "I am your son, King Ade. I am Prince Ola." The words hung in the air, and for a long moment, time seemed to stop. King Ade's breath caught in his throat as he stared at the young man before him. Could it be? Could this truly be his lost son, returned to him after all these years? Leo, who had been quietly observing from the doorway, stepped forward, her expression unreadable. She had not expected this, had not planned for this. But as Toby's gaze shifted toward her, she felt an unexpected chill run down her spine. The stage had shifted. The long-awaited confrontation was now at hand, and the balance of power in Tula was about to change forever. King Aid's heart raced as he gazed upon Toby, the young man who had just claimed to be his lost son, Prince Ola. The words seemed to echo in the air, reverberating with a truth that was too incredible to believe. His mind struggled to grasp the enormity of what was unfolding before him. For years, he had mourned the loss of his son, silently blaming himself for not being able to save him from the river's current. And now, standing before him, was the very child he had thought to be lost forever. Toby stood tall, his posture steady despite the whirlwind of emotions that surged within him. His heart felt torn. On one hand, the moment of reunion with his father was bittersweet, filled with the warmth of recognition and longing. On the other, the truth of his origins, and the life he had led under the river's care, weighed heavily upon him. He knew the kingdom, the people, and even his father had suffered, but the memories of the river folk, especially Kemi and Queen Alakan, were a part of him too. He could not deny his bond to them. King Ade stood frozen for a long moment, too stunned to speak. His eyes scanned Toby's features, searching for some sign, any sign, that this boy truly was his son. Then, slowly, he rose from his seat, his hands trembling slightly as he reached out toward Toby. "Prince Ola." King Ade whispered, the words catching in his throat. "My son, is it truly you?" Toby nodded solemnly, his voice steady yet filled with emotion. "Yes, father. I am Prince Ola. I was taken from you many years ago, but I was saved. I was raised by the river folk, under the protection of Queen Alakan, the Mermaid Queen." A flood of memories washed over King Ade as Toby spoke. He remembered the day his wife, Queen Duni, had died, leaving him heartbroken and vulnerable. The night of Prince Ola's disappearance still haunted him, and the years of anguish had never truly ceased. And now, here was his son, alive, and standing before him, telling a story that seemed like a dream, or perhaps a tale spun by the gods themselves. Leo stood in the shadows, her face a mask of stillness. But beneath her composed exterior, a storm of fear and rage churned. The truth had come at last, and with it, her carefully laid plans for Ao to ascend the throne were in jeopardy. The return of Prince Ola meant everything had changed, her carefully crafted power structure was now crumbling. She had hoped, for so long, that her son would one day rule Tula. But now, her secret was exposed, and her deceit was on the verge of being revealed. Toby turned to her, sensing the tension in the air. His eyes locked with hers, and for the first time, he understood the unspoken words between them. Leo's eyes darkened with an emotion he couldn't place, a mixture of anger, fear, and guilt. He didn't need to hear her words to understand the truth. This woman, the one who had stood by his father's side all these years, had been the one who'd ordered his abandonment, who had plotted to eliminate him for the sake of her son, Ao. "I don't remember much of my life before the river," Toby said softly, turning back to his father. "But I remember the warmth of the water, the kindness of the river folk. I remember being cared for, and I remember the feeling that I was chosen for something greater than myself." King Aid's eyes softened with a mixture of relief and sorrow. "You were taken from me by deceit and cruelty, Ola," he said, his voice trembling. "But I will never, ever lose you again." The words felt like a balm to Toby's wounded heart. He had long wondered if the king still mourned him, if his absence had left a permanent scar on his father's soul. But now, standing here, he could feel the love and the longing in King Aid's voice. It was a connection that no time or distance could sever. Leo, unable to bear the weight of the situation, finally stepped forward, her voice calm but laced with venom. "This changes nothing," she said, her eyes flashing with cold defiance. "The people of Tula need hope. Ao is the true heir to the throne, and he is the future of this kingdom. Your son," she spat the words out, as though they were poison, "is nothing but a wild creature raised by river folk. He cannot rule." Toby's gaze hardened, his fists clenching at his sides. "You abandoned me, Leo. You sent me to the river to die, and now you speak of who is worthy to rule. Leo's expression faltered for just a moment before she regained her composure. I did what was necessary to secure the future of this kingdom, she said, her voice dangerously low. Your father was weak, grieving for a son who would never return. I gave him a new heir, one who would not fail him. King Aid's face darkened with fury. Leo, he said through gritted teeth, you will not speak of my son in such a way. You have betrayed me, and you have betrayed our kingdom. A deep silence fell over the room as the weight of the king's words sank in. Toby's heart pounded in his chest, and for a moment, it felt as though time itself had stopped. The entire palace seemed to hold its breath, waiting for the next move. King Ade turned his gaze back to Toby, his eyes filled with sorrow and regret. I am sorry, my son, he said quietly. I should have known. I should have never let them take you from me. Toby shook his head, his voice soft but firm. You were deceived, father. You did what you thought was right. Now, we must fix what has been broken. The words echoed in the chamber, and for a moment, a sense of clarity washed over Toby. He knew what needed to be done. His return was not just a matter of reclaiming his birthright, it was about restoring balance to a kingdom that had been fractured by deceit and greed. The land and the river had been separated, and both were suffering. He could feel the weight of the drought, the land crying out for help, and he knew that it was up to him to bring about a reconciliation. Toby turned to the window, looking out over the kingdom that was his birthright. The people of Tula were still suffering, and the river had withdrawn its blessings. It was clear to him now that the river's magic had not abandoned the land, it had been cut off, severed by the darkness of betrayal and envy. We must bring the river back to the land, Toby said, his voice steady and full of resolve. We must heal both the kingdom and the river. And I will do whatever it takes to restore the balance. King Ade nodded, his face filled with admiration and pride for the son he had lost and now found again. Then we shall do it together, Ola. Whatever it takes. Leo, however, stood still, her heart a cold knot of anger. This wasn't the end she had planned for. But the truth had come to light, and the moment of reckoning had arrived. The stage was set. The people of Tula would soon discover who their true ruler was, and Toby, the prince who had once been lost to the river, would reclaim his destiny. The kingdom and the river would be united once more, but only if Toby could face the trials that awaited him, both within and beyond the palace walls. Toby's journey to restore balance had only just begun. As he stood before the palace windows, gazing out over the kingdom, he felt the weight of the world upon his shoulders. The future of Tula, the land, and the river now rested in his hands. His first task was clear: he had to return to River Zuka, to the source of the river's magic, and beg the mermaids for their help. But that journey would not be easy, and it would require more than just his strength and determination. It would demand the courage to face the very forces that had torn his family apart. The time for redemption had come. Toby stood at the gates of the palace, feeling a surge of purpose rising within him. The kingdom of Tula, though ravaged by the drought, was still home to many, a people who deserved a ruler who understood the balance between nature and humanity. He could hear the calls of the river, even from here, as if the waters themselves were beckoning him back. He knew his path was clear: to return to the river, to seek the aid of Queen Alakan and the river folk, and to restore what had been broken. With a final glance back at King Ade, who nodded in silent understanding, Toby turned and made his way toward the river. His journey was not only one of physical distance but also one of soul-deep reckoning. He had to confront the people who had once saved him and face the forces that had torn his family apart. He knew that reconciliation would require more than just words, it would require courage, humility, and a willingness to sacrifice everything for the greater good. As he traveled through the forests surrounding Tula, memories of his years in the river's care flooded his mind. He remembered the gentle ripples of the water, the way the sunlight filtered through the shimmering surface, casting a magical glow on the coral palaces. He thought of Kemi, his sister in all but blood, and of Queen Alakan, whose wisdom and power had shaped him into the person he was today. They had given him a home when he had none, nurtured him when the world had abandoned him. And now, he needed to go back to them, to seek their aid in healing both the kingdom and the river. As Toby approached the riverbank, a familiar sight met his eyes, the flowing waters of River Zuka, vast and deep, stretching out as far as the eye could see. The river seemed to hum with life, its current steady yet mysterious, as if waiting for him to return. But the water was not as it had once been. The drought had taken its toll, and the once pristine river was now sluggish, its once lush banks dry and cracked. Toby knelt by the water, his fingers grazing the surface, feeling the faint pulse of the river's heartbeat beneath his skin. He closed his eyes and whispered a prayer to the spirits of the river, offering his gratitude for the life it had given him. He knew this journey would not be easy, but it was a path that had to be walked, no matter the cost. As he waited, a shadow passed over him. He looked up and saw Kemi, swimming gracefully towards him. Her emerald green tail sparkled in the sunlight, and her face, once filled with innocence, now carried the weight of the years that had passed. "Toby," she said softly, her voice full of warmth and sadness. "I knew you would come back." "I had no choice," Toby replied, his voice firm. "I must help the kingdom, and the river, and the people who depend on us both." Kemi nodded, her gaze drifting toward the dry, cracked earth beyond the river. "The river is sick, Toby. It is dying, slowly. The magic that once flowed through it has been severed. And the land," she trailed off, her voice thick with sorrow. "The land cannot survive without the river. We have watched the drought worsen, just as you have. The people of Tula cannot know how deep the river's magic runs. It is tied to the balance between us, and without that balance, both will fall." Toby stood, his heart heavy with the weight of the responsibility ahead. "But how can we restore it, Kemi? How can I bring the river back to life? What can we do?" Kemi swam closer, her eyes filled with the ancient knowledge of the river folk. "The answer lies within the river's heart," she said softly. "There is a place deep beneath the waters, a hidden realm known only to those who are chosen by the river. It is said that whoever can reach the heart of the river will gain the power to restore its magic, and with it, the land." Toby's heart pounded in his chest. "And how do we find it? How can I reach the heart of the river?" Kemi's gaze softened. "There is a trial, Toby. A trial that will test not only your strength, but your heart. You will face the river's greatest guardians, the spirits of the deep, and you must prove that you are worthy to wield the river's power. Only then will the heart of the river reveal itself." Toby took a deep breath. "I am ready," he said, determination burning in his eyes. "I will face whatever trials are necessary." Kemi smiled, a bittersweet expression on her face. "I will guide you, Toby. But remember, the journey ahead will not be easy. You must face not only the river's guardians but your own fears as well. The river will show you things that may frighten you, things you may not want to see." "I'm not afraid," Toby said, his voice resolute. "I have come this far. I will not turn back now." Kemi nodded, then turned to lead the way. Together, they swam deeper into the river, heading toward the hidden realm that lay at its heart. The waters grew colder as they descended, and the once calm currents began to shift, as though they were alive and watching. The journey took them to a place where the water was so deep that even the sunlight could not reach. The river seemed to hum with an ancient energy, as though it was both alive and conscious. Toby felt a strange sensation in his chest, a pull toward the depths, as though the river itself was calling to him. Suddenly, the water around them began to swirl, and from the depths, great shadowy figures emerged. They were the guardians of the river, beings made of water and light, their forms shifting and changing as they circled around Toby. "These are the guardians of the river's heart," Kemi whispered, her voice trembling slightly. "They will judge you, Toby. Only those with pure intentions and a brave heart can pass." Toby's heart raced, but he stood tall, his mind focused. "I will not fail. I will do whatever it takes to restore the balance. The guardians closed in, their eyes glowing with an otherworldly light. They spoke in unison, their voices echoing in Toby's mind. You have come, mortal, to seek the heart of the river. But to reach it, you must prove your worth. You must face the trials of the deep. Toby nodded, his voice steady. I am ready. The guardians reached out, their hands made of water, and touched Toby's chest. The world around him seemed to dissolve, and he found himself standing alone in a vast, dark void. The water was still, but an oppressive silence hung in the air. Suddenly, the silence was broken by a voice, his own voice, calling out from the depths of his heart. You are not meant for this. You cannot heal the river. You have failed. Toby recoiled, the words stinging him like a blow. But he pushed them aside. He knew they were not his true thoughts. The trial was beginning, and he had to face it, no matter what it showed him. Is this who you are, Toby? The voice mocked. A child of both land and river, belonging to neither. Toby clenched his fists, forcing himself to look deeper into the darkness. No, he said aloud, his voice unwavering. I am both. I am Prince Ola, and I will heal what has been broken. The voice fell silent. And in that silence, the river's heart began to stir. As Toby stood alone in the dark void, the waters around him began to glow with a soft, ethereal light. Slowly, a figure emerged from the depths, not a guardian, but something older, something far more ancient, the spirit of the river itself. Welcome, child of both land and river, the spirit said, its voice like the sound of the river's flow, gentle and powerful. You have proven yourself worthy of the river's heart. Toby stepped forward, his heart beating faster. I came to restore the balance, he said. To bring life back to Tula, to heal the river. The spirit nodded. You have chosen the path of unity. But remember, true healing comes not just from power, but from the understanding that both land and water must coexist in harmony. With that, the river's heart revealed itself, a glowing orb of pure water, pulsing with an inner light. Toby reached out, his hand trembling, and as his fingers brushed the orb, a surge of energy coursed through him. The magic of the river filled him, connecting him to the land and the water in ways he had never imagined. The spirit spoke one final time. Go now, Toby. Heal the river. Heal the land. And restore the balance between both. Toby's heart swelled with the river's power, and he knew that the time had come to return to the kingdom of Tula, to bring the river's blessings back to the land, and to reclaim his destiny. Toby emerged from the depths of the river, his heart still pounding with the power of the river's heart pulsing through him. He felt a newfound connection to the land and the water, a deep, primal understanding of their delicate balance. The energy within him was both invigorating and overwhelming, but he knew it was time to return to Tula. As he swam back toward the riverbank, Kemi was waiting for him, her expression one of awe and concern. Toby, she said softly, her voice laced with anticipation. What did you see? What happened? Toby smiled, though it was a smile tinged with the weight of the journey he had just undertaken. I saw the spirit of the river. It spoke to me. It told me that the river and the land are one, that we must work together to restore balance. He paused, glancing back toward the kingdom in the distance. The river's heart is now within me, Kemi. And I am ready to return to Tula and heal the land. But I cannot do it alone. I need the river's magic to flow freely once more. I need the people of Tula to understand that without the river, the kingdom cannot thrive. Kemi nodded, her eyes filled with pride and concern. Then we will return together. But the trials you faced in the river were only the beginning. The people of Tula will not easily accept you, especially with Queen Leo still in power. You must be prepared for their resistance. Toby's heart was steady. I know. But I have to try. For the sake of the river and the kingdom, I will face whatever comes. The two of them swam back to the shore, and together, they journeyed toward the kingdom of Tula. The journey felt longer now, the weight of the world pressing on Toby's shoulders, but he carried within him the strength of the river. As they neared the outskirts of Tula, they could see the land laid bare before them, fields withered, crops dead, the once thriving village now suffering under the sun's harsh glare. The drought had taken its toll, and the people were on the edge of despair. When they arrived at the palace, Toby could feel the tension in the air. The palace, though grand, seemed to be a place of shadows now. The people murmured as they saw Toby, his presence both unfamiliar and unsettling. Some believed him to be a lost child, a myth from the river, while others feared his return. Queen Leo, however, would not take kindly to the boy she had tried to erase from the kingdom's memory. Inside the palace, King Ade was standing by the balcony again, looking out at the dried fields. His face was weary, but as he turned and saw Toby, his eyes widened with disbelief and then wonder. Is it truly you, my son?" Toby stepped forward, the magic of the river humming through his veins. "It is me, father. I have returned to heal the land, to restore what was lost. The river's heart is with me, and together, we can bring life back to Tula." King Ade's eyes welled with tears, his heart torn between joy and the reality of the situation. But Leo," he began, his voice faltering. Toby nodded. "I know. She may not want this, but the river has chosen me. I will not stand by and watch the kingdom suffer." Before the king could respond, Queen Leo entered the room, her gaze hard as she saw Toby standing before her. She had always been a woman of poise and control, but now, her face betrayed a flicker of fear, followed by a sharp mask of disdain. "What is this, Ade?" she demanded, her voice cold. "A boy who was lost years ago, a phantom from the river. Are we to put our trust in a child raised by fish?" Toby met her eyes without flinching. "I am not a phantom, Queen Leo. I am the son of King Ade and Queen Duni. I was taken by the river when you abandoned me. And now, I have come to restore the balance, to save Tula from the drought that is consuming it." Leo's lips curled into a sneer. "You are nothing more than a distraction, Toby. A mistake that should have stayed forgotten." Toby took a step forward, his voice steady and filled with quiet authority. "It is not the river that is a mistake. It is your ambition that has blinded you to the needs of the people. You have taken everything for yourself, and in doing so, you have doomed Tula. I will not let you sacrifice this kingdom for your own selfish desires." For a moment, there was silence. Queen Leo's expression flickered, but she quickly regained her composure. "You speak as if you know the kingdom's heart, but you are just a child who cannot understand what it means to rule." Her eyes narrowed. "If you think you can change things, then prove it. Show me that the river's magic will save Tula." Toby held her gaze. "I will. And I will prove that the river and the land are one. Together, they can thrive once more." Without another word, Toby turned and left the palace, heading toward the outskirts of the kingdom where the once fertile fields lay barren. King Ade followed closely behind, his heart torn between hope and uncertainty. The people of Tula had gathered at the edge of the dry land, watching with skeptical eyes. Some whispered among themselves, others stared in disbelief as Toby approached, his body emanating an aura of power and magic. Kemi stood beside him, her face full of hope, though she knew the challenge ahead would not be easy. Toby raised his hands, feeling the river's magic surge within him. He closed his eyes, focusing on the energy coursing through him, and then, with a deep breath, he released it. The river's power radiated outward, flowing into the ground beneath him. At first, nothing seemed to happen. The air was heavy with expectation, and the people stood in silence, waiting. Then, slowly, the earth beneath them began to stir. A faint shimmer of moisture appeared in the cracked soil, and within moments, the dry land began to transform. Green shoots of grass began to push through the earth, and the air seemed to cool, as if the land itself was breathing again. The people gasped, their eyes wide with disbelief as the transformation continued. Rivers of water began to flow through the land, rejuvenating the fields, and the once parched crops began to bloom anew. The drought that had gripped Tula for so long was finally breaking. The power of the river surged through the land, and Toby stood at the center of it all, his heart filled with both awe and determination. "This is just the beginning," he said, his voice strong. "The river and the land are connected, and together, we will restore Tula to its former glory." The people cheered, their voices rising in praise as the earth and the river responded to Toby's call. Even King Ade, standing in the distance, allowed himself a smile of hope. But Queen Leo, watching from the palace, stood frozen, her expression a mixture of fear and disbelief. Her plans had been shattered, and she could feel the power slipping through her grasp. Toby turned to Kemi, his face a mixture of relief and resolve. "The river has healed the land. Now, it is time to heal the kingdom." And with that, Toby, the child of both land and river, became the Prince of Tula once more, the heir to both the waters and the kingdom, destined to restore balance and unity to both. As the days passed and the land of Tula began to flourish once more, the people celebrated the return of life to their kingdom. The river's magic had not only revived the crops but also brought a sense of hope and unity to the people who had long suffered from drought and despair. Toby, though still young in years, had proven himself to be a beacon of strength, courage, and wisdom beyond his age. His connection to the river had transformed him into a leader capable of bridging the divide between the water and the land. But while Tula thrived, shadows still lingered within the palace. Queen Leo, though outwardly composed, seethed with jealousy and anger at the turn of events. She could not accept that the son she had sought to erase had returned, empowered and beloved by the people. Her desire for control, her ambition to see her own son, Ao, take the throne, still burned brightly in her heart. Toby knew that peace could not be fully restored until he confronted the darkness within the palace. The kingdom could not truly heal until the truth was laid bare, and justice was served for all the wrongs that had been committed. But he also knew that this would not be an easy task. His return had already created a storm, and Queen Leo's pride and wrath would not be easily quelled. One evening, as Toby sat by the river, contemplating the challenges ahead, Kemi swam up to him, her green tail glistening in the moonlight. "Toby," she said softly, "the land is healing, but the heart of the kingdom still remains broken. You cannot keep running from the truth. You must face the queen." Toby sighed, his heart heavy with the weight of her words. "I know, Kemi. But how do I face the woman who tried to destroy me? Who caused so much pain?" Kemi's eyes were filled with understanding. "You do not face her with anger, but with truth. Only the truth can heal what has been broken." Toby nodded slowly, knowing deep down that Kemi was right. He had already faced many trials. He had faced the river's trials, the pain of being abandoned, and the fear of losing his identity. But now, he would face the greatest challenge yet, restoring peace within his family and his kingdom. The next morning, Toby approached the palace, his heart set on confronting Queen Leo. The people had already rallied behind him, their hopes resting on his ability to restore balance to the throne. As he entered the grand halls of the palace, the air felt thick with tension. The courtiers whispered as he passed, their gazes filled with uncertainty and curiosity. Toby was no longer just a lost child from the river, he was the rightful heir, the prince returned to claim his place. Queen Leo was waiting for him in the royal chambers, her beauty still radiant but her eyes hard, like stones. Her expression faltered when she saw him, but she quickly masked it with a veneer of calm. "You have returned," she said, her voice smooth but betraying a hint of tension. "I see the river's magic has worked wonders. But that does not change your place in this kingdom, Toby." Toby stood tall, his heart firm. "It changes everything, Queen Leo. The land is healing, but the kingdom cannot truly be restored as long as the truth remains buried. You tried to kill me, to erase me from the world, but the river saved me. It chose me for a reason." Leo's eyes flickered with fear, then narrowed with defiance. "You speak as if you are the rightful ruler. But the throne is not yours, Toby. It belongs to my son, Ao. You are nothing more than a boy raised by fish. Toby's voice was calm, but his words carried the weight of a lifetime. I am not just a boy raised by fish. I am the son of King Ade and Queen Duni. I am your husband's firstborn, the rightful heir to the throne. And it is time for the truth to be known. You abandoned me, tried to destroy me, but I have come back stronger than ever. And the river has given me a power to restore this kingdom. Leo's hands clenched at her sides, her eyes flashing with anger. You dare to accuse me of such things? You think the people will follow you, that they will abandon my son for you? You are just a child who knows nothing of leadership. Toby's gaze softened. I may be a child, but I have learned from the river, from the land, and from the people. Leadership is not about power, it is about understanding, compassion, and sacrifice. It is about protecting the people, not using them for one's own gain. I will rule with wisdom, not with ambition. For a moment, there was silence in the room, the weight of Toby's words hanging heavy between them. Queen Leo's expression shifted, and for the first time, she seemed to falter, the mask of control slipping. But she quickly regained her composure. You are a fool, she hissed. You think you can change everything, that you can undo what has been done. I will not let you take my son's place. Toby took a deep breath, his heart steady. You've already tried to take everything from me, but the river chose me for a reason. It will not let me be silenced. And neither will the people. Ao is not ready to rule, not like I am. The river has spoken, and it has chosen the true heir. Queen Leo's lips twisted in a bitter smile. Then let the people decide. Toby turned and left the chamber, his mind resolute. He knew the final battle was not just one of power, it was one of the heart. The kingdom needed unity, and the truth had to be brought to light. The following day, Toby called for a council, inviting the people of Tula to the palace to hear the truth. King Ade was present, his heart heavy with guilt but filled with a hope he had not known in years. The people gathered in the palace courtyard, murmuring among themselves, unsure of what to expect. Toby stood before them, Kemi by his side, her green tail shimmering like the river's depths. People of Tula, Toby began, his voice strong and clear. I stand before you today not as a child of the river, but as your prince, your true heir. The river has given me the strength to heal the land, and now, I ask for your support in restoring peace to our kingdom. It is time for us to come together, to put aside old fears and resentments. We are one people, connected by the land and the water. And I will rule with the wisdom of both. The crowd fell silent, watching him with wide eyes. Toby's words resonated deeply with them, for they had witnessed the land's transformation and had felt the change in the air. But it was not just the magic of the river that had healed the land, it was the hope that Toby had brought with him. As the murmurs grew into murmurs of agreement, Queen Leo stepped forward, her face pale with fury. This is madness, she spat. You are not fit to rule. Ao is the true heir. But the people, tired of the drought, the lies, and the suffering, began to speak out in Toby's favor. They had seen his heart, and they had felt the strength of the river within him. And so, the tide of fate turned. The people of Tula rallied behind Toby, and King Ade, with tears in his eyes, declared him the true heir to the throne. Queen Leo, stripped of her power, could do nothing but retreat into the shadows. With Toby as their prince, the kingdom of Tula was restored. Under his leadership, the land flourished, and the river flowed freely, bringing prosperity to the people. And though the challenges were not over, Toby knew that with the truth and the river by his side, he would lead Tula into a future of peace and unity. The kingdoms of the land and the waters were no longer separate, they were one. And in that unity, the river's secret was revealed. True leadership comes not from ambition, but from the heart. And so, Toby ruled with wisdom, compassion, and humility, ensuring that the land of Tula would never again fall prey to darkness or division. The people learned that true power doesn't lie in force or deceit, but in the courage to face the truth, the strength to protect others, and the willingness to listen to the wisdom that flows within each of us. The river, once a mysterious and mighty force, had revealed the greatest lesson of all: true leadership comes from the heart, not from the throne. Moral lesson: always seek the truth, lead with kindness, and never let ambition cloud your heart. Great leaders are not those who seek power, but those who use their strength to protect and uplift others. Question for you: if you were in Toby's shoes, would you have been able to forgive Queen Leo for what she did? Why or why not? Let us know your thoughts in the comments below. And don't forget to like this video and subscribe to our channel for more captivating stories and exciting adventures. Your support means the world to us.